And we are live. This is Toronto Stevie Live. And I have my camera is set up really weird, isn't it? Maybe just put it down there. Um, and this is Toronto Stevie Live. Like and subscribe to my channel. I have some wrestling that I watched over the weekend. Um, we'll actually do a bonus one first, which was AEW Redemption. Uh, I was able to watch that show and watch most of the matches, including the main event, and then we'll do the Raw report afterwards. So, but AEW Redemption came from the Bell Center in La Belle Province de Quebec, Montreal, Quebec, Canada. And um, I did not watch the buy-in, so we'll begin with the first match on the main show. I believe it was the number one contender six-way ladder match. You had the Beast Mortos, El Clone, Speedball Mike Bailey, Jungle Jack Perry, Commander, and Nick Wayne flying around the ring. A lot of flying moves on the ladders. It was pretty weird. At one point, you had for Jack Perry, you had these small ladders. One thing I noticed when they initially started putting the ladders in the ring was they were really small ladders, and you knew that there was no way that they were going to use those ladders to climb to get the contract to get the number one contendership until Jack Perry went to the stage and got a really big ladder and did some wild move off the top of it. And finally, they brought out the big ladders. But then you had the Beast Mortos, who looked like the biggest, certainly the widest guy in the match, flying around the ring, slamming, beating each other, all the bad guys up. Other masked guys like Commander, beating him up, and El Clone. My money was on Jungle Jack Perry. I really wanted him to win the match, but that's not how it worked out because um, you had the hometown guy, Speedball Mike Bailey. Finally, he was able to climb the ladder and grab some sort of contract, and I guess they really wanted to start the show off with a bang. Speedball climbed the ladder, grabbed it, and he becomes the new number one contender for the international championship. Now, there was going to be an international championship match later on in the show. So whoever survived that would get Speedball Mike Bailey as the next challenger. Um, so there was a package hyping up a tag team match. I believe it was the Young Bucks, Nick and Mac Jackson, taking on the Death Rider team of John Moxley and Will Ospreay. This was kind of a weird kind of thing because really, I mean, like the Young Bucks were heels for majority of their time in AEW, and now they're supposedly baby faces. You had Will Ospreay, who has always been considered a baby face, and then you had John Moxley, who is a profound heel. Um, Again, a lot of flying around the ring with everyone. Um, and this one, I think you had at the very end, you had um, Moxley trying to basically lure Osprey into the dark side, lure him to the dark side of the Death Riders, and he was hitting like a series of paradigm shifts. And at one point, I think he brought a chair into the ring, um, but Will Osprey would not let him use the chair, and eventually um, it was the Young Bucks hitting the BTE trigger on John Moxley, and I think they eventually um, used super kicks and covered him and pinned him. So the Young Bucks actually won this match, and they left the ring. Um, and then that's when um, yeah, I think they wanted. I can't remember. Maybe it was later on in the match, or later on in the show. There was some really potentially violent things going on because eventually Will Ospreay divorced himself from the Death Riders, but I think that was later on in the match because the next match I think was it was the AEW International Championship. So Speedball Mike Bailey earns the number one contendership, and he will face the winner of Kyle Fletcher versus Bandito. Kyle Fletcher basically said that he wanted to do this all by himself, so he did not want the rest of the Don Callis family to accompany him to the ring. And of course, Bandito is the Ring of Honor champion. Seems everybody on AEW seems to have a belt. But it was Kyle Fletcher, actually. I think he was able to retain the title. He hit a brainbuster on Bandito and pinned him. So Kyle Fletcher retains the title. And Don Callis comes down to the ring. And it'll be Kyle Fletcher versus Speedball Mike Bailey for the international title. The next match, kind of, it was kind of disappointing. I mean, it was a double chain match, a tag team chain match. The Bang Bang Gang, Jay White and Juice Robinson taking on the Dogs of Clark Connors and David Finlay. Now, you would think in a chain match that it would be violent, there'd be a lot of blood, but really it was kind of disappointing. Yes, I mean you had them using the chains to choke people and beat them up and all of that, but for a chain match, it was kind of underwhelming. I mean, you had a lot of interference. I think you had the Gun Club, you had Daniel Garcia coming down, but eventually it was David Finlay. I think he brought in the shillelagh. He nailed Juice Robinson, and I think pinned him. And it was the Dogs that won the chain match. And then the next match was the TBS Championship match. The champion Hikaru Shida defending against Maya World. And holy Shida, she lost her belt. It was Maya World winning the TBS title in a pretty good match. Shida, I guess, now is officially a heel. But it was Maya World who was your new champion. And that led into the next match, which was the AEW World Tag Team Championship match. The champions Christian Cage and Adam Copeland defending against the Death Riders of Claudio Castagnoli and Pac. I think this was the one because this was the second appearance by the Death Riders, and it was actually the baby faces Cage and Cope. I think it was Copeland hitting a spear and pinning I think it was Claudio. But celebration, I mean, like the baby faces stood in the ring, Cage and Copeland, when the Young Bucks came down to the ring, and they basically hyped up that the next title defense for Christian Cage and Adam Copeland would be the Young Bucks. And then I think, okay, this led into yet another underwhelming, well, maybe not as much. It was a no holds barred match. It was Chris Jericho using the Painmaker gimmick, taking on Tommaso Ciampa in a no holds barred match. This one was pretty bloody. There was some blood in this match with, I think at one point, Christian Cage, or was it Ciampa, pulled out a bag that was full of hockey pucks and thumbtacks, laid them out, and I think he took a move on the thumbtacks. Chris Jericho took a move on the thumbtacks, but that wasn't the most violent thing in this, because I think it was Chris Jericho cutting open Tommaso Ciampa. I think it was something he brought out of a bag. I can't remember what it was, but he just put it on the Tommaso Ciampa's face, and blood just spurted out all over the place. Anyway, another point, I think they tried to use a drill at one point, and fortunately, that didn't. Nobody used the drill, but Chris Jericho did pull out a barbed wire mirror. He put it between two chairs, and he was going to slam Tommaso Ciampa on it, but I think he basically, I think, either took it himself or he put Ciampa through it anyway. I think, Jericho grabbed the drill and he was going to use it on Ciampa, but Ciampa tapped out before he could use it. So Chris Jericho wins the no holds barred match. Then we had a very boring, useless talking segment with Mick Foley and Divine Dominion. Definitely didn't add to the show at all. The next match was for the AEW National Championship. Mark Davis versus Andrade El Idolo, and they made a point of saying multiple times that Andrade El Idolo has never won a singles title in AEW, and that came to an end as it was Andrade who got the pinfall and the victory. So your new AEW National Champion is Andrade El Idolo. At least he's got more name recognition than Mark Davis. The next match was for the AEW Women's World Championship. The champion Tekla defending against Willow Nightingale. And wouldn't you know it, in back-to-back matches, we get a new champion. Willow Nightingale was able to get the win with a backslide, pinned Tekla, and won the title. So I don't know if this was probably the best move of the night, but you have a new AEW Women's Champion in Willow Nightingale, which leads into the main event. Nasty Neil was saying that he wasn't going to watch this match, saying he didn't think that this was a main event, a pay-per-view main event worthy main event or match. It was Kenny Omega defending against Kevin Knight, the Jet Kevin Knight. I'm pretty certain that no one ever expected Kevin Knight to win this match, and sure enough, they did their best, but eventually Kenny Omega hit the V trigger and pinned, and then hit the one-winged angel on Kevin Knight and pinned him and retained the title. Um, this was at this point, I think, yeah, they wanted the show to go off the air with maybe a climax to the Will Ospreay, Will Ospreay, John Moxley storyline, because that's when the Death Riders came down to the ring. Daniel Garcia, Wheeler Yuta, Claudio Castagnoli, Pac, Marina Shafir, John Moxley. They were going to beat down um, um, Kenny Omega, but the Young Bucks came in, and then Will Ospreay came in the ring. And I think this was when um, John Moxley tried to persuade Will Ospreay to use the plastic bag on Kenny Omega, but um, Will Ospreay refused to use the plastic bag, got rid of it, defended Kenny Omega, and I think he also belted John Moxley. So, but when the Death Riders took a powder and left, it left Kenny Omega and Will Ospreay in the ring, and proving that no good deed goes unpunished. Kenny Omega hits Will Ospreay with the one-winged angel as the show comes off. His show ends, and Omega poses with the title. So that was the show. I gotta tell you, it was a long show. It took me a long time to watch it, but it was okay. I kind of agree with Neil. Um, maybe it was a show that probably deserved a more stronger main event. And plus, he made a good point about all those titles. There were a lot of title matches, and you got to think, um, you know, they really need to combine some of these titles, because, like, you know, I mean, you have an international champion. What is that like? And WCW had an international champion, but that was only because they broke away from the NWA, and the NWA title became the WCW international title. Um, we've got Mr. Jobo. Um, um, what does this say? Okay, how are you doing? Well, I'm doing okay. I'll give you a little update right before the Raw report of something that's happening tomorrow. But what else did he say? He said, I watched Heavily Kid. Do you mean Heavenly Kid? You know, there was a 1985 movie called The Heavenly Kid. But you're going to have to provide some details on that, Anthony. Oh, yeah, The Heavenly Kid. Yes, I watched that too way back. Actually, probably when I was in university. Is this the one about the guy who dies, and then he learns he has a son, and then Richard Mulligan basically sends him back to Earth to prevent the kid from I think getting into some sort of race that kills him. It was a comedy, and it was okay. I mean, I actually liked it too. If that's the movie you're talking about. So before I get into the Raw report, I did want to give you a little update on what's happening with me. Tomorrow, I'm going to the hospital, and I'm going to talk to a surgeon about what's happening with my leg, and trying to figure out, do I need to have surgery now, or can I delay it? And what's going to happen? What's going to happen if I delay it? And say, or can they put my leg back into its socket without incapacitating me for too long? But we'll find out. Um, but that's what's happening to me tomorrow morning. Um, when I get some information, maybe I'll share it on one of these reports. Um, oh yeah, I guess Anthony confirmed that that's the movie that he just watched. So let's get into the Raw report. This was the Monday Night Raw go home show for SummerSlam, and I've got to tell you straight up, this was one weird, bizarre show. Um, so it's so Monday Night Raw came from Inglewood, California. Um, you had um, so the show opens up with the Hell in the Cell. I think you had Adam Pearce in the ring, and you got Triple H in the ring, and they're doing basically a weigh-in for Brock Lesnar and Obafemi. Obafemi comes down to the ring. He steps on the scale. He's 302 pounds. And they're basically waiting for Brock Lesnar. Brock Lesnar's music hits. He comes out with Paul Heyman. And Brock Lesnar takes his own sweet time coming down to the ring. But he doesn't get into the cage. Instead, he locks the cage because somebody left um, a chain and a padlock on the cage. So Brock Lesnar just puts it in, locks it, and stands there. Well, Obafemi comes down and he can't get out of the cage, and Brock Lesnar is just laughing at him. And Paul Heyman cuts a promo on Obafemi, and this really made Obafemi look dumb, um, trying to get trying to get out of the cage. I was kind of wondering if Obafemi was gonna do a Mark Henry and try to rip the door off, but he didn't, and instead he just stood there and looked dumb. Um, I think I did have my feedback on Facebook. I had my feedback as I was watching Raw. Um, so I'm gonna go to that just to remind me of what went on there. Um, so um, so so another thing that was in there is you had these so-called cops that were in the ring, surrounding the ring with Triple H and Adam Pearce. So when Brock Lesnar refused to get into the cage for some bizarre reason, Obafemi took it upon himself to start beating up all of these cops that were in the ring. And I was wondering as I was watching this that, well, if he beats up police, shouldn't he be arrested? Like, like remember when like Steve Austin, roughed up some cops, he got arrested. And or do you remember that infamous segment where Scott Steiner, I think he shoved a real cop during a segment on Raw one time. But for some reason, Obafemi does not get arrested by the cops. Um, so, um, but the long and short of it is that segment. I really think that segment did make Obafemi look kind of weak and dumb. Um, he should have. Um, I mean, the idea of um, Brock Lesnar of leaving a padlock there. Um, yeah, it made Brock look smart and strong, but he's not the one you're trying to get over. The one you're trying to get over is Obafemi. So kind of defeats the purpose. The ending of that segment. Anyway, about 20 minutes into the show, we get the opening match of the night. It's a tag team match Braun Breaker and Austin Theory taking on Akira Tozawa and Otis. I never expected the Alpha Academy to win this match, and sure enough, they didn't. Um, Once again, you had Maxime Dupree making Otis look dumb, um, distracting him so that Austin Theory could and Braun Breaker could take him out. I think they hit a spear on Tozawa, pinned him. Um, um, and After the match, Otis got the similar thing. Theory just held Otis in place, and then Braun Breaker hit a super spear on Otis and laid him out. It was the Vision retaining the titles. Um, this was probably, I mean, like I said, I never expected this. Never expected Alpha Academy to win, but I'm pretty certain this is the end. This is probably the end of uh, this mini feud between these two. There's no reason why Alpha Academy should get a title shot against these guys. Anyway, um, we haven't seen the Street Profits in several weeks, so I'm kind of wondering if they're going to come back next week and demand a title match, the opportunity to get the belts back. Anyway, there was a um, after that, I think there was an interview with L.A. Knight. Um, um, and then there was a vignette hyping up the Sol Ruca Raquel Rodriguez title match for the Intercontinental title. Coming back from the commercial break, there was a segment done on Chad Gable hyping up his title match against Penta, and sort of goes over the journey that he's had to go through, his own redemption journey. They went all the way back to when he went heel on the Alpha Academy, and then became El Grande Americano and lost his mask and all of that. So, and then the show's going downhill when you get yet another video package focusing on Liv Morgan and Io Sky for the Women's World title. This led into another commercial break. This went on for a long time. But coming back from the commercial break, we had only the second match of the night. I didn't time this, but it was a long time between matches. Javon Evans versus Rusev. I think I made this point on In Your Head last week that WWE has its own roster of jobbers like All Ego Ethan Page, and unfortunately, like Rusev and Matt Cardona. Rusev should not be jobbing, in my opinion. I wish that they would really push this guy, but unfortunately, it certainly looked like Rusev was going to win this match because he was getting all kinds of offense on Javon Evans. At one point, he got Javon Evans into the Accolade, and it certainly looked like either Javon Evans was going to pass out or tap out, but he was able to get out of it. He hit Rusev with a stunner and then an OG cutter and pinned Rusev. So unfortunately, Rusev once again loses again, and I just shake my head at this program, at the way this matches went. Anyway, coming back from the commercial break, was one of the weirdest segments, and one of the weirdest segments in Monday Night Raw. You gotta wonder what the hell was this. Anyway, it was Danhausen and Joe Hendry giving a concert, and you really know by now that WWE just does not consider Joe Hendry to be a serious wrestler. He's probably not going to be winning any titles. He's going to be on the level of an R-Truth. If he's doing these segments with Danhausen, they proceed to sing a song. Um, and this brings out all the little mini Hausens that come down to the ring, and even some women wearing Danhausen masks come down to the ring, and they're all singing this song that mini Hausens are celebrating with them. When they're interrupted by the Judgment Day, and J.D. McDonough and Dirty Dominic Mysterio start beating up on Joe Hendry and Danhausen. And I think it was the Mini Hausens. I don't think they did much, but Danhausen got a frog splash from Dirty Dominic Mysterio. And basically, it was the heels getting the upper hand at the end. Coming back from the commercial break, after this, we finally get the third match of the night, Rey Mysterio versus All Ego Ethan Page. While I was watching this match, I looked up on the internet. Rey Mysterio is 51 years of age. He's the on-screen general manager of AAA in Mexico, and he doesn't wrestle very much, whereas All Ego Ethan Page wrestles pretty much every single week. And like I was saying about Rusev, Ethan Page is also some guy who does a lot of jobs. And I was really wondering, is Ethan Page going to job Rey Mysterio? And I was really, at one point, I was expecting him to, because Rey kept going for the 619. But it surprised me. They surprised me. Ethan Page used the Egoplex to pin Rey Mysterio. So he actually wins a match. That might have been the first match he's won in weeks, if not months. Anyway, yeah, we go backstage, and so Danhausen is he goes up to Adam Pearce, and he basically says, "I want to have money's on a pole lunch." Yes, money's on a pole. So at this point, I was thinking to myself, is Vince Russo booking this show? Because, like, money's on a pole, huh? Anyway, so I would assume that since SummerSlam is a 2-night affair, one of these nights they're going to have money's on a pole, Dirty Dominic Mysterio versus Danhausen. Anyway, human money's on a pole too. Not just money's, but human money's on a pole. Coming back from the commercial break, we get a video package of SummerSlam. It's in Minnesota. Coming back to the ring, you have the Usos coming down. They say they're sending a warning shot to their opponents at SummerSlam: LA Knight, Royce Keys, and Solo Sikoa. And just while the Usos are in the ring, Solo comes out, and he cuts a promo, and he basically he says that Solo Sikoa basically says, "I'm happy where I am right now. So are the fans." And he has a message for the Usos to tell Roman Reigns to kiss his ass, and that he looks forward to taking on his family at SummerSlam with Royce Keys and LA Knight. LA Knight comes down, and he's walking to the ring, and I think this was he cuts a promo. He's got a microphone. He cuts a promo, and he and Solo Sikoa are taking on the Usos when Jacob Fatu shows out. Jacob Fatu shows up, and he basically starts beating up LA Knight. This brings out Royce Keys, and I think all these guys started brawling. I think LA Knight hit a BFT on someone. Um, I think Solo Sokoa hit a Samoan spike on. I think it was Jacob Fatu, and I think that's how that segment ended. We get a video package of Hell in a Cell. Coming back from the commercial break, we get the fourth match of the night. It's for the Women's Intercontinental Championship. Sol Ruca defending the title against Raquel Rodriguez. And much like the Lyra Valkyria Bailey match at Saturday night's main event, this match had some unexpected blood in the match. Um, Sol Ruca, I think she hit a suplex or some sort of move onto Raquel Rodriguez, busted her up in the nose, and before you knew it, all this stream of blood came coming down Raquel's face, but she kept going. The important thing is Raquel Rodriguez kept wrestling, and this kind of added to the match. Again, much like Lyra Valkyria, this made Raquel look tough, fighting through all this blood coming. It just kept coming down her face, and but she still had help from the Judgment Day women, Liv Morgan and Roxanne Perez, coming down to the ring. I think Sol Ruca was trying to go for the Soul Snatcher when Liv Morgan, behind the referee's back, interfered in the match. And this allowed Raquel Rodriguez to pick up Sol Ruca and hit the Tejana bomb and pin her 1, 2, 3. And for the first time in her WWE career, Raquel Rodriguez wins a singles title. It's the Intercontinental title. I remember years ago, about 2022 or 2023, Raquel Rodriguez was really flying high as a babyface. She took on Rhea Ripley for the title at one point, but Rhea Ripley won that match, and so she never really did live up to the promise at that time. So maybe this is going to jumpstart her singles career. We'll see where this one goes. And I think this led into the main event of the show, which was a face-to-face between Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins. And this was just basically them talking to each other. Roman Reigns calls Seth Rollins an asshole, and Reigns and Seth Rollins just basically says, "Yeah, I am. I'm the bad guy here when it comes to the two of us." But then Seth Rollins cuts his promo, basically saying that every time that they've had a match, he's always won. Is it going to be any different? Much like, are you going to get disqualified like the Royal Rumble in 2022 when the Usos, I think, interfered in the match and basically handed the victory by disqualification to Rollins, but he didn't win the title. And Rollins even knows this is the bloodline going to do your dirty work for you? And he cuts his promo, and he mentions WrestleMania when he cashed in the Money in the Bank. He says, "I sent your family home in tears, and I hope your family's going to be there on Sunday, because I'd love nothing more than to see your family crying again." So, so he keeps going. He says, "When your family figures out that their daddy is a fraud, a loser, and forever and always will be Seth Rollins, bitch." And I guess there must be some unwritten rule in professional wrestling, is that when you call your opponent a bitch, that's sort of like the key word, or the key word to start brawling. And sure enough, Reigns and Rollins start brawling. I think Reigns hit Rollins with a Superman punch, hit him with a spear. He He grabbed a chair and went back into the ring. But as he was getting into the ring, Rollins comes back and hits a stomp on Reigns. And that's how the show ended, I think, with Rollins standing tall over Roman Reigns. Um, they tried to end the show on a bang, but as you know, I'm someone who really doesn't like a lot of this non-wrestling segments with only 4 matches in a 2.5 hour to almost 3 hour show. Um, Definitely wasn't my cup of tea, so I've got to give this a big thumbs down. Did you watch Monday Night Raw? Did you watch AEW Redemption? If you did, please let me know what you thought of the shows and leave a comment. Um, um, I was underwhelmed by AEW Redemption and a big thumbs down to Monday Night Raw. So I'm kind of hoping that SmackDown on Friday will be a better show leading into the 2 night Summerslam. But like I said, tomorrow I'm going to the hospital, gonna see about my leg, see what they recommend. Do I have surgery on the leg? Can I delay the surgery? And if so, what could possibly happen to my leg if I let it go for a couple of years or longer? But um, I'm optimistic that things will work out. So thank you very much for watching. Thank you, Anthony, for showing up. And we'll see if Nasty Neil has a showing in your head on Friday night. So this is Toronto's TV Live. Thanking you very much, and I am out of here. Bye bye, everybody.